picked up by Castleford, who was clearly on the market. Who else is there?
Brian McDermott.
Pretty sure he won't be going back to Leeds.
Anthony Seibold, your favourite coach.
But you wouldn't, again, be spending money to bring somebody in from abroad at the moment. That is an expense that clubs do not have.
No, that's a good point. No, I think with Leeds, there are a number of issues there.
There's some real mitigating circumstances with Richard Agar anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they've had a horrible injury run. They've still not got their first choice spine. But I think also some of the recruitment decisions over a period of time have not been great. And probably the Wembley run masks some
again, I'm not sure you can levy that solely at Richard
Agar. No, not at all.
If at all.
No.
And I think
he's a decent job.
Tetivano is a really good signing. So for everyone and every club gets signings wrong, there are some that clearly are. Matt Pryor's been an absolutely excellent signing. I think Cruz Leeming's been a good signing. So
Tualola here, Rob Louis.
Just that, Louis was very important in keeping them in Super League, and won a Challenge Cup with them. But I think Lola here was just the wrong person in the wrong club at the wrong time. Merrin was really important again in getting them to back on a track, and they wouldn't have got Pryor if they hadn't got Merrin. So
it's a lot of churn in a short period of time. Though I think managing that transition from the golden era, which is not easy for any club.
Hey, Robert Elston. He's looking for a job, old Robert.
Oh, sorry, no
He's arrived with the coffee.
No leaks, thanks.
It's Robert Elston.
So I've swapped. We've got a new thing now. I've actually got my laptop on.
Not sure if that's yours,
but it might work. Hello again, viewers.
Thank you, Robert.
We are further apart than we look. I know we'll fly up. It doesn't matter. You're going to go back to everything? They're rubbish. So Leeds are in crisis again now. So that's.
Well, there was quite a few. Well, say quite a few. There was a handful of fans leaving with about 7 minutes to go. They missed a Briscoe try.
Big fight.
And there was at least one Agar out I saw on Instagram. I'm not sure if that was more tongue-in-cheek. It probably was.
I think we need to be realistic at every club at the moment about what coaches are working with. Chris Chester will be another classic example. When Joe Westerman comes out and says, we want to play for him, nobody's working harder.
Bound Joe Westerman.
Yeah. The conditions that coaches are working under at the moment, the fact that they barely had their players at the beginning of pre-season, they could only train in little groups. Leeds were one of the clubs like Wigan were that had to have a shutdown for a couple of weeks. All of that, the whole Kyle Eastman thing, that they desperately they needed a half-back.
Sorry, I forgot about recruitment. I mean, that was a bad decision from day one.
Was it a bad decision, or was it just unfortunate?
No, it was a bad decision.
It was a gamble worth taking.
If you look, they gave him 2 years. If you're going to gamble, you give him 1 year. And B, if you look at
that him making a commitment?
Making a commitment. He was a free agent. No one else wanted him. He'd barely played in the last 18 to 2 years in rugby union, let alone coming back to rugby league after a long period. With his injury record and his age, any recruitment person will tell you, with half a brain, will tell you it was a bad signing. But in saying that, you are right. There was not a lot of halfbacks or players. Yeah. So that,
and if it had worked, it was a relatively low investment.
I don't think it was ever going to work, though, Phil. That is my point. I mean, we saw with Sonny Bill Williams coming back. We saw with Luther Burrell, and we've just talked about at the start of the show how hard with the rule changes.
No, it is. It's not the sport that he's coming back to.
It's not Jonathan Davies in the early '90s. Do you know what I mean? It's just, and most recently, his name escapes me, even though I wrote about it. The All Black who was going to go to the Roosters.
Yes, scrum half.
Yes, unbelievable player. And his cousin is Henry Perinara. His cousin is Sonny Bill Williams. His father played for the Junior Kiwis. He loves rugby league. He's decided, probably not. And he's someone who could make it, but the demands are so much different.
But Trent Robinson wanted him.
Yes, yeah.
And would have taken him.
He would have only, and I don't think money was the primary motivation, but I think he was going to be on 150 grand He's been playing in Japan for probably close to $1 million.
But I also
if he fails,
but I also think that applies to Eastman, that he wasn't on top dollar. He was on a contract that, had he become what they hoped he would be, he may have been on top dollar. I don't think there was anybody else out there at a time where they needed a halfback, so it's a risk worth taking. But again, when you're the coach and the player you're hoping will fill a void isn't able to do that, is it the coach's fault?
I'm not blaming Richard Agar for that decision, no. And I think there's been a lot of decisions made at Leeds for a period of time, and you can go back to the David Ferner debacle.
That is, again, something that I don't think they realised at the time was going to hurt them as much as it ultimately did. So,
who appointed David Ferner?
There you go.
Phil Kaplan.
Took him out for lunch, said, "This is the club for you."
Funnily enough, though, he was most recently the defensive coach at the Newcastle Knights. Since he's left, the defence has got really bad, so who knows? Yeah, they're a rabble now.
There are some people who just thrive in certain environments and not in others.
Some people online said he was under pressure. That's what he was told in that press conference, some people online. Don't know who they were. If you know who they are, let us know.
If you ever find it.
Broken the fence. Broken the fence.
I mowed that.
This is the new
that, especially for coming back.
You think you would think Odsal would cost more to rent now? It's been done up, and its level of iconicness has gone up.
I mean, I don't know. I know you infamously slagged off Speedway many years ago.
I did, which is ironic because we're going to have a Speedway guest on in a few weeks.
How can you have Speedway? I mean, presuming that involves tar roads.
Well, it's shale or something. I don't know anything about Speedway road.
Would that kind of
just it's on Euros?
Close to a pitch? Would you need a smaller pitch or something?
You've got to take the corners up, I think, to make it an oval.
So what happens if someone is in the corner and
you roll them back down again? But that's what used to happen also. You'd always kick to the corner because the ball would roll back down.
Sounds a bit faster.
Sheffield Eagles, when they played at the Overton, they had the same issue, didn't they? But the pitch was a lot smaller because the infield at the Overton.
Well, I think players were changing in the car park. Yeah,
it's like the Women's Super League. We'll talk about that in a bit because we've got the semi-finals to talk about.
We were there.
Leeds and Hull. That was done. All those people. Did Leeds Council not let you wear masks in the stand? Because everyone's upset because none of the Leeds fans wearing masks. Well, that's not your fault, Phil. You're not Leeds Council.
I didn't realise that I was responsible for that as well.
People got upset about that.
It's my fault for the recruitment, and everybody should wear masks.
I love how you had 2008 people there. Everyone else had the even numbers as if they were rugby union, but 2008 saw Lee lose 44-6 to Huddersfield. But despite that, Lee were the better team. They're not as good as Huddersfield, not as good as Lee.
The thing that's interesting with Lee, they seem to start every game. Well, they seem to score first every game. But yeah, I mean, talk about coaches being under pressure. I mean, was John Duffy the right?
But should he be under pressure?
Well, he's never coached in Super League before. His team was thrown together.
Yeah, I mean, it's mission impossible.
They've got a massive 2 weeks now, Lee, because haven't they got Hull KR and then Wakefield?
I've no idea.
I think I'm not sure, but I think if they can get a win against either of those teams, it does give them a massive chance. But
they've got Hull KR.
But I think they've got Wakefield a week after.
If they lose both of those games, I mean, obviously there's only a 2-point buffer with Wakefield. I think that's the only but that's a huge result. And I think I've seen Wakefield a few times this season. I don't think that. Well, they shouldn't have lost to Leeds. They've not been that badly in the whole Hull FC game, where they had a player concussed, and Faramo somehow wasn't sent from the field. I mean, yeah.
I think the other thing about Wakefield is that clearly Jacob Miller played yesterday and made a huge difference. If your best players are out on the park in your key positions, the guy who you've given the 4-year contract to, who you want to build the team around, if he's out there, it's massive.
I'll also make a point, Phil. It also helps when the Sandella team passes it to your prop who's having a rest. Who's
blatantly.
In the words of Jeff Tuvey, someone needs to be held accountable for this. There needs to be an investigation for this. That was bizarre. Oh, I think Arona he couldn't believe his luck. Could he?
Unbelievable.
And then he looked how far out to go and went,
It was
having a rest.
It was a fellow Kiwi who passed in the ball as well.
Liam Kay had been designated Wakefield scapegoat season as well with 2 tries. So that's disappointed.
I think that's Chris Chester.
Well, yeah, but he's the obvious scapegoat. Liam Kay's the other scapegoat. Not good enough for the Super League and everything. Got too much hair. Toronto, yeah.
Anybody who wears a bobble,
so,
clearly not.
I'm not a big fan on man buns myself, personally.
So I did say at the start of the season, and I can't remember if I said it on here or not, that I didn't think we'd win any of the games up until Hull KR. So I was right there. So, hooray. I did tip Hull KR yesterday, though, because I took Leeds, so I don't know what I was doing this weekend. Going to beat Castleford. Castleford are rubbish now. In the Dowell Powell derby, Josh Charnley scored. I think he's gone up on some try chart or something. Toby King.
But again, Cass are now the team that seem to be suffering the most with injuries.
Yeah. They can put all their academy players in.
I think, as we said,
they started so well.
There was going to be a cycle where every team has to cope with injuries. We're just waiting for one of them to fall down.
James Roby's about to retire.
I think we just had the premonition there that this is his last season. Again, get your best players out there more often than not. The likelihood is you'll come up with a result.
It also shows the lack of talent below that top 17. I mean,
yes.
You talked before about the NFL. I mean, you see, I think was he 17? Brad Arthur's son come and have a great debut for Parramatta.
Stephen Crichton is the example I would use.
He's been around for a while, though, Phil.
But he's still only 90.
Yeah.
And he is so comfortable at that level there. Sam Walker, 18.
Well, Sam Walker, yeah, I mean.
Leeds born, Sam Walker.
Yes. So he's allowed to play for England?
He's eligible.
No, but because he was born here, though. Doesn't matter that he's spent all of his life in Australia. And, yeah, unlike Jackson Hastings, it's okay. Just check.
Nikolai Ledsky's okay, though.
Who's Leeming shouldn't be.
Proper foreign Africa, like well down there. Europe's okay.
I think you colonised that anyways.
Well, where haven't we? Wigan 7 from 7. Brad Singleton, former Leeds man, 2 tries. Liam Farrell, Jackson Hastings against his former club. They love him still in Salford. Get over it, Salford fans. He's gone. He's left you. Now he's leaving Wigan as well.
He's just dropped the goal that's beaten you.
Salford in crisis. I'm sticking with this one.
You think it's going to be a long, hard year for Salford?
I mean, I'm saying this as a team who supports a team that's on exactly the same points percentage of 14.29. Yeah, I am.
I tipped them to be 11th this year. I thought the coach, who's a Salfordian, who did such an excellent job, was the heart and soul of that club, left. Took the conditioner with him.
Because he could see that long term they couldn't match his own ambition.
Yeah, more money, more opportunity, club with bigger
players,
bigger fan base, better facilities.
And he could pick the players that he wanted, and the club would say, "We'll back you on that."
And he'd taken them to 2 finals, so it's not like he'd done a bad job. But you on top of that, and then a number of players leaving: Noel Evans, Joey Lussick, etc. New coach who hadn't coached in Super League before, no reserves academy. I mean, it's always going to be a lot of churn. Again, It's always going to be a long, hard season. I think the real issue, though, is the AJ Bell. I've not really heard an update on that, but if they lose the tenancy of that stadium, I don't know what happens to the club, where they go.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? Because it's like Oldham, Swinton,
Sheffield.
Rochdale, all these teams in the Greater Manchester area who
Sheffield
become
No, sorry, I completely butchered Switch's point.
No, but it's just I didn't want people to think that you thought Sheffield was in the Greater Manchester.
It's all the same to me. But that example, like Sheffield have played, they're playing Doncaster now. They played Wakefield. They played
Barnsley.
Yeah, and they've lost half their fan base. I mean, if Wakefield started playing at Bramall Lane, how many Wakefield
Well,
get
we
a
were
Brown
supposed to
Lane?
play in Dewsbury for a bit, which, as we now know, if we'd have gone and played in
Yeah.
Dewsbury, everyone would have thought the Mobile Rocket was the greatest stadium on earth, because that's what everyone thinks about Odsal now. So,
I mean, it's kind of one foot towards death.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you're 1 foot in the grave. So
if
I
you-
really hope that doesn't happen for Salford, and they, you know, for a stadium that was built for the city of Salford with taxpayer money, it shouldn't go to rugby union. But
And again, there are issues going back to what we were talking about earlier about criteria.
that isn't enforced.
That, you know, what is the situation with your stadium? How safe is your tenancy agreement? You know, as well as your academy and your academy status and all that kind of thing. Your production of talent. All of this needs to be. And again, people say, "Oh, you just because you're a fan of licensing," but I just do think that is a
I am a fan of
criteria
licensing,
by which the sport can move forward.
and you do have to look at then also why we're Salford kicked out of the Willows, but there's other clubs in Super League with dilapidated, terrible grounds.
Absolutely.
And London Broncos, London Broncos were allowed to play in Super League in a stadium that doesn't meet the criteria. So who gets the exemption? Who doesn't? I mean,
But they at least are making plans to go to.
oh yeah, I'm not talking about now.
Which,
I was
if you were
talking
to
about 2
put
years
an
ago.
elite academy in Wigan,
Yeah.
makes some
I think
kind of sense.
I think it's a great move for the Broncos, and hopefully they can build a home. But again, that also goes back to how long has there been a club in London for? How have
Which
we
is
not had a strategy for
ridiculously
London
nomadic.
and, you know, supported them with development officers and other ways, whether it be salary cap concessions, and tried to make that a strong
and as
hub.
we've said, if you even gave dispensation on the salary cap for anybody that they have produced, so that effectively a Louis McCarthy Scarsbrook, to coin an example off the top of my head,
The Dan Sargents
would count
Tony
as
Club.
nil on their salary cap if they wanted to stay.
Yeah. Well, it's essentially that, you know, the London Broncos could be the Melbourne Storm of
Absolutely.
Super League, but that hasn't happened. And we have to look at
Wait
why.
until Toulouse get promoted and see the backlash.
we didn't talk about Huddersfield when we talked about league. 44-6. Impressive.
We said at the beginning when you were fanning about the cameras.
Well, I mean, I only saw the highlights, but they look slick. They look very
Ian-
slick.
Oh yeah, you were talking about the process, yeah.
But the process seems to be right. And I think his view of how the game should be played is, if I was a Huddersfield fan, I'd be excited about what might be the future under Ian Watson. I said they made the playoff this year. I think they still. Might.
I thought they'd be in the top five. I know they had a poor start. I think it was always going to take time
a long season
with a new coach and a lot of new players, and obviously Aiden Caesar was out for the 3.
And the great thing is, you're looking at a club there who have invested in their academy to the point where they are now bringing players into their first team who are holding their own in the first team. They're there on merit. They're nailing down. They don't need to go out and sign a centre when Jay Wardle is playing as well as he is.
But on that as well, and this ties back into the academy game. If you're, I can't remember his name now, but the young Huddersfield centre winger who went
Darnell McIntyre. Dom
Young.
Yeah, Dom Young.
And Bailey Hodgson from Castleford.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get a chance to play in Super League, but you'll go and play in the New South Wales Cup or get signed up by an NRL club and
absolutely
get more money and the opportunity. So we may see a lot more of that.
Yep. So
whether that's a good thing for the England team at the end. Yeah.
The worry then becomes you're losing your box office players at the top who are overseas. You're losing your most talented juniors at the bottom. What are you left with in the middle?
Because I think the whole John Bateman, George Williams experience now, particularly with Canberra, less so Sam Tompkins, but there's been some other ones. I don't think you're going to get NRLs who are going to pay big money transfer fees for players who get homesick, and I'm not having a go on them for getting homesick. Completely understandable. But if you can put 50 grand as opposed to putting 400 grand on someone who's got
Dom
potential.
Young's already played first grade for Newcastle, and that must be an accelerated development.
Well, they've had a terrible injury list in their back line, and I think Bailey Hodgson's been injured. He might have played. He might have made his debut, by now. So, I think the NRL clubs will be looking, and already have been looking at the best young talent, and instead of waiting until they're 25 and they've played for England.
Some of our best young talent that we haven't even heard of yet as getting Australian agents.
Well, Herbie Farnworth, what was he, 15? Gareth Widdop was about 15, wasn't he?
Well, the thing about Herbie Farnworth is really interesting because his uncle didn't even want him in a system over here. He just felt
was a Wigan talent scout.
Yeah, he felt that if he needed to go abroad and see if he was good enough to play at that level, he could always come back and play over here.
They are the best talent systems in rugby league. That's a fact. Much like the English football academies are much better than the Australian soccer academy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We just need to admit that. Doesn't mean that there can't be good academies in England.
Strengths,
but
absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll probably have Wigan fans say we need to talk enough about Wigan, but they're boring now because they're winning all the time. And
the interesting thing about Wigan is they're doing things very Wigan. They're winning on a week-to-week basis, and their coaches come out and go, "We're not playing very well, but I'm happy that we've won." And yet, the big games that they needed to win, like the Challenge Cup game against Hull and the Grand Final last year, the Challenge Cup semi-final last year, they haven't won. So there's a little hurdle that they need to get over.
I think that's a little bit nonsense, really. No offense to you, Phil, but the grand final.
But they didn't.
The ball hits the post.
Yeah.
But margins in a big game like that. I don't think they have a.
They didn't play well against Hull in the quarterfinals.
They didn't. No, that was by their standards.
They did.
But they did play well in the grand final.
They didn't play well against Leeds in the semi-final of the Challenge Cup last year. The big games that they've had.
I don't really remember that game, to be honest. But yeah,
it was the game that Leeds. It was the game last year that Leeds played really well. Never allowed Wigan to be.
I just think when you come to those games, I mean, putting the Hull one aside, and I think Hull are a much, much better team this year than they were last year. And I think anyone who's watched Hull a few times this year would say that. I mean, I think they probably should have beaten Wigan in the league if Jake Connor kind of kept his
stayed on the field.
Yes, yeah. And that can cost you a game, a brain explosion.
Interesting thing for me with Wigan, I think, again, we said it a couple of weeks ago, is where is Zach Hardaker's best position? And I think it's fullback. And if that is his best position, and that's the position he clearly wants to play in, then he's wasted on the wing at the moment.
If it was me, I would have Bevan French at fullback and Zach Harder in the centre, because I think if you've got a quality players, you find a way to play them all. And I think that worked for them last year. I mean, there's not much point having Bevan French in your team. I mean, he's a decent winger, but I think he is a fullback.
I just think Hardaker is so much more dangerous when he's reading the game at the back, and defensively he's arguably the best fullback that we've got. He's a better defender. I just think he's wasted on the wing and frustrated when he plays in the centre. Again, you look at perhaps the long term as well and say, Bevan French is the kind of guy that you give the roving commission to play anywhere along the back line. But
if you put him in the wing, he won't see the ball half as much.
Well,
you put him at fullback, he can come into the line when he chooses.
I just think Hardaker should be their first choice. And that may well find him out.
He's not going to be England's first choice fullback, though, is he?
There you are, we're talking about it.
Yeah.
We disagree.
Yeah.
Wigan fans will no doubt disagree with.
Yeah.
Will Adrian Lamb be there next year?
Well, again, we talk about coaches and who's the pressure, but you're going to have to. What Huddersfield have done with Ian Watson, which I basically think is you're here for as long as you want to be here, we'll back you as whatever you need it. You need to deliver. You're under pressure to deliver because we're not going to put all this money in if we're not seeing improvement, which they clearly are. I think we're going to need to do that with their coach, whoever it is. A 1 year rolling contract, and the uncertainty at some points in the year as to is he going to be here, who do they sign, who makes the decision, who am I going to be playing for if I come to your club? I just think that's unsettling. And if Adrian Lamb is the man and they do want him here long term, I think they need to pitch him an offer. But
does he want to be here long term? Well, that's the other thing. I mean, he's not saying, he's got a wife and 2 sons back in Australia.
And I suspect he'd rather be watching wouldn't rather be. I think he'd like to be watching his son playing for the Roosters.
Playing very well for the Roosters, yeah.
But he needs a job as well. So, but I'm sure negotiations are ongoing. But as a major club, I think it's a state. It's like when Justin Holbrook was at St Helens. It was like, you're here for as long as you want to be here. If you're going back to the NRL, we can't put anything offer on the table that's going to stop you. I think it'd be the same with Christian Wolf. He may at some point go back, but I think they bought him on the basis of the fact that you're not just here for a year. Wigan just seem to have a situation with their coach that is always going to
it goes back
crop
to
up.
Sean Edwards was supposed to be the coach, wasn't he? Obviously, that didn't happen, and Adrian Lamb was the fullback, and he's been a very good fullback. I think he's done they're the only undefeated team in Super League, aren't they?
Would Adrian Lamb get an NRL coaching job? Asks JWell TV on the YouTube.
I think he's in the mix. Yeah, I think
you get an assistant's job for sure.
He's already had
a head coach.
He's already had.
I think if he went back, he'd go back as an assistant, maybe. But
I think that was the idea to come to England, because much like Justin Holbrook, Trent Robinson, Michael Maguire, if you have success in Super League and you prove yourself, it's a greater step than just assistant to the NRL. And Brett Hodgson is another one. In 3 years, are we going to see him in the NRL or 5 years?
Yeah,
I would say
he'll be
probably.
coach of West. Yeah.
Or Parramatta. Yeah, I think it was interesting earlier. I think there was 5 coaches sacked or moved on in the NRL last year. Obviously, we've not seen any. Well, we've seen one club bloodletting with John Morris, but
that went well.
Yeah, well, it may. I think John Morris got treated pretty harshly, personally. But Craig Fitzgibbon may turn out to be the next Craig Bellamy. We don't know, so it's a wait and see. But no, I think Adrian Lamb would certainly be in the discussions. I mean, if you look at his win rate, big games or not, he has done quite well. They won the league leader shield last year.
That there's going to be a 17th franchise, so there's going to be room for an extra coach.
Well, I think Wayne Bennett said to all 3 Queensland bidders that he'll be their coach. So he's hedged his bets.
All right, so there's a vacancy at South then.
No, Jason Dimitri's got
but there is going to be more opportunities.
Yeah, someone will get sacked probably. I mean, Adam O'Brien's not doing too well.
That's a
Trent Barrett's not doing too well.
That's
Anthony
Griffith's not as big as a
Griffith's
surprise.
up and down.
You like him, don't you?
Anthony Griffith. I don't know, but don't really have. He's an old school coach. He's actually done quite well. I mean, they didn't start the season.
Brisbane might need a coach.
They did win. They did win on the weekend. Is that one win, Phil? Or
no, I thought it's a 3.
Yeah. They played well at Magic. Only got beat by 50 by Manly. Yeah,
I don't think they're going to win the premiership this year.
I saw a tweet that said you had 2 wins off the top 8 or something. Can they make it?
It's a very lopsided competition when you've got Penrith who are undefeated and
about the NRL.
Yeah,
I just saw the tweet. Catalans beat St Helens. Saints are rubbish now. Just backing up Kev, who watches this program, and his opinion on that.
Do you think Catalan are the real deal?
Don't we say this every time at this time of the year?
Yeah, I can't work them out. I thought at the start of the year they'd struggle because looking at the players they recruited and the numbers that they'd left, obviously Israel Folau wasn't coming back.
And Dean Farrar is a better player.
He's not a better player, but he's a very good player. He is a very good player, and I think he's been wasted. Man. Yeah, he's a different sort of player. But also they had the training issue, so they literally, I think, worse than anyone else because of the rules in France, they couldn't train as a team. But they started the season really well. But then they've, the Challenge Cup game against Warrington.
But they had a massive week this week, beating Holloway on Monday, the Saints at home on Saturday, and they've got Wigan coming to them this week. I reckon this is the part of the season where we'll know whether they are genuine challengers or not. I think Tom Davis is one of the best wingers in Super League.
He's having a great season,
and I did we say it last week? I think he's going to finish as the top try scorer this year.
So if he leads Rhinos, isn't he someone you look at and say, oh,
they have looked at him. They looked at him before he signed.
Exclusive. There you go.
I believe he is a Leeds fan.
Wow. And he's a Wiganer.
But whether they would prize him away from the Dragons, he is the winger I think that Leeds need. I thought it was really, understandably, Wigan have a load of very good wingers, and somebody was always going to drop off that tree, and he was injured. But he always looked to me like he had everything. But I just think Maloney's given them a bit more solidity in the middle, and the forwards seem to be, well, they'll either have a day where they'll give away a load of penalties, or they'll be really, really disciplined. When they're disciplined, they're so hard to break down.
It's
this week, they have been excellent.
That consistency, just, I don't think you can.
I'm not saying they are the real deal.
Pick them week by week with any certainty, but on their day, they're a very, very good team.
They seem to be more consistent this year.
Some seem to be able to watch us okay this week. Some are having trouble, so I don't know what the issue is. But a couple of questions on the championship, because we've done Super League, haven't we? Apart from asking why people don't like Richard Agard, I might save that until next week, just in case Leeds lose again. Who have they got this week? Cass. Oh,
Cass on Wednesday, Friday night.
Oh, it's not on telly. That's a shame. Isn't it?
No, it's not.
Saints and Holstead. Andrew says, what are your thoughts on Toulouse going to Super League? I know it's early on in the season, but they look phenomenal. They've gone 6 from 6, can't say that. They beat Swinton 66-18.
At Swinton.
At
even though it was a home game.
At Haywood Road, the home of Sale. What do you think of the championship? It's a division of rugby league teams. Why have London been so up and down? They lost 33-8 yesterday to the brave Bradford Bulls.
My only thought about Toulouse is I think they possibly will win promotion, but Super League have got to announce now that they are happy for them to come into the competition. We cannot afford to go through the whole Toronto scenario again.
Well, you do remember before the year that Toronto were promoted, that Ralph Rimmer said publicly they're not guaranteed even if they win.
Yeah. Have you still got Ken Davies' number from that briefing? Just ring him up, ask him.
Because I do think we need to get stuff like that, apportioned before we get to the point of no return.
It wouldn't be very rugby league, Phil, would it? Come on.
And again, I just think there are some advantages of having two teams in the same country playing in Super League.
No. Toulouse at top, you're not coming in, you're French. Featherstone a second, you're too small. Bradford a third, perfect.
We own your lease.
Perfect.
I can't speak about the quality in the championship because I don't see enough of it. And I think if you're only dealing on highlights, then it's disingenuous to say what you think the standard of play is. I do think the issues that the championship have had for the last few years manifest themselves. If everybody gets a different disbursement, you are going to have an on-level playing field, and it's the same on-level playing field that we've always had. It's a really difficult division because it's that mixture of part-time and full-time. And yes, Bradford, who are part full-time but part part-time, have beaten London, who are part full-time but I don't know. But I think the issue is that we need to decide what we want to be in that division.
Jason Robinson, I assume not that one, says he'd love to see a French derby in Super League. About the stuff I say about Sale, it's not going to be like Jason Robinson. And Shield says Toulouse will be good for the game. Featherstone 50 points for 18 winners away at Sheffield, brackets Doncaster yesterday. Halifax beating Newcastle 32-0 on the road. Winners 44, Whitehaven 6, and York 34, Oldham 6 in front of 1,000 people in the new exciting LNER Community Stadium, Bijou Boutique Stadium, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Which is great if you can find where to park.
There's a whole retail park around the park.
Yeah, but you can only stay for 2 hours, which if you're there for a double header is a little bit difficult.
Unless you know who runs the car parking.
Yeah,
unless you talk nicely to
I didn't have that problem when I went to February and we're in a national lockdown. So.
In League One, London Scholars won away at Coventry 44-26. Doncaster beat West Wales 62-24. Barrow won at Hunslet 29-6.
That's a big result for Barrow.
Workington won at North Wales 44-16. So a bad week for Wales this week. And Abigail, who was watching but probably isn't now, we've lost the link. So apologies, Abigail, because you won't hear your shout out. She'll be happy because Rochdale Hornets beat Keighley Cougars 43-36. Fui Moi Moi, who is still a thing, scored a try at the age of 433. So well
she
done.
Can hear it on the podcast.
That's
Hello,
true.
Abigail.
So well done, Fui Moi Moi. Well done, the Rochdale Hornets. Massively high scoring game. So you haven't seen it. Basketball there. So Workington top of League One, just above Barrow, who are not from Cumbria, because people will tell us off who we say they are. 3 wins from 3 from both. Toulouse and Fez both top of the Championship. 6 wins from 6. This week, in the Championship, Toulouse versus Newcastle. This on Saturday, and West Wales versus London Skulls in League One on Sunday. Not all games on our league now. Is that now a thing?
There will be some, but I don't know if they're showing all.
Well, no, because Batley Swinton's not on.
Because it affects the crowd, you see.
And Sheffield Whitehaven's not on. But on is Bradford York, Halifax Fev, London Dewsbury and Oldham Widnes, and in League One not on, apparently, Barrow North Wales, Coventry, Rochdale, Keighley Huns and Workington Doncaster. I'm saying they're not on. It's what it says in the paper, so I could be wrong. Gaslight says, before we get on to the semi-finals of the women's thing, do you think Steve Price will get a job in the NRL when he goes back to Oz? You'd hope he'd get a job. Otherwise,
well, yeah.
what's he going to do?
I don't think he'll fall straight into a head coaching role. I imagine he'll pick up a coaching role somewhere. But yeah, I mean, it depends really how they see. I mean, Warrington win the grand final, his reputation won't be harmed. But yeah, I don't think he's not got a job lined up to go to, as far as I know. I think he was one who, obviously, with a young family, after 4 years, wanted to go back, and Warrington probably thought it was time for a change as well. So, yeah.
Well, Canterbury Bulldogs are rubbish, aren't they? CG says, surely Toulouse should be playing more French players. I think there was 8 overseas players playing for them this week. Yeah, but I bet there's a lot of overseas players playing for most teams in the Championship. And that's where it all falls apart, isn't it? Because if we talk about, when we go back to the academy system, how many third-rate Aussies are playing in the Championship? Yeah, exactly.
Wigan and... Yeah.
Both Wakefield's halfbacks are foreign. Surely,
you don't like foreigners, do you, Rich?
Not in Wakefield. Oh, no.
New Brown at Featherstone.
Oh,
New Brown, is he?
Dane Chisholm. Aren't
they from Pontefract?
Ponte-Carlo.
Pontefract Dubbo.
I think I said this a while ago. I think there should be
I don't think any overseas players should play in the Championship. And again, if we're serious about standards and academies and bringing young talent through, then I think
there should be a reduction of at least one quota spot, because you have the Colpack ruling where people who are Australian or New Zealanders who can get
used to be able to. I'm not sure.
Well, it is changing, but yeah. I mean, it's a bit of a technicality that means you can have more foreigners, and it does harm the development of local players. So,
but again, you're into we keep going back to the debate about academies because people want to talk about it. Where does dual registration fit into the academy system? Where does the loans fit into the academy system? Where does the concept of pairing up clubs at different levels? Which I hate to use the term feeder club because it's a pejorative term. People think, oh, we're lesser. No, actually, it's a development pathway. How does that all fit into the academy debate?
Well, it's interesting. I think you talked earlier about like Mikey Lewis, who has played some Super League, but is probably not ready to play weekend. He's gone to York. So effectively, that is their reserve team.
Yeah.
It's helping York out because they've had injuries in their halves.
Yeah.
But where else, if he doesn't go there, where else does he go?
Does it need to be a formal link and link to academies?
Yeah. But is there enough players, good enough players to form a reserve team while also still having a championship and a League One? I don't think there is.
That is the other thing about talking about going back to something. Why did it stop in the first place? Because there wasn't enough talent coming through. So just going back to something is not necessarily the answer. I think there is an issue
less money.
in the community game. I think there is an issue that we've taken some of the representative steps out. So there aren't town team games anymore, and there aren't. So the ability at the age of 11 maybe to play for the city of Wigan in a big derby against the city of St Helens, that's not necessarily about you're going to play at Super League in some day. That's putting in graduated steps so that you can represent at some age the area you're from. And we've ditched all of that. Well, can we bring that back along with elite academies? Or the whole thing needs to be looked at and not just a small part of it.
So we've got the excitement, because I think that's everything done from the men's game, I think.
You're in charge.
Yeah.
You and the good people who are.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have them back, isn't it? And, again, apologies, but
You couldn't expect us to be at peak form in week 1 after such a long way.
I might have to get some new phone chargers that actually work, or just actually get some things that work. So is there actually any other news that we need to talk about? I don't think there is there? I don't think anything's actually
Disciplinaries come out. There's not a lot. A couple of players have got a match each.
I know some people will be upset that
Corbin Sims.
Yeah, he's exonerated. Sent off. Yeah, it's going to happen, isn't it? But that's not a bad thing because, as we say,
are we going to see or is that the first crackdown on high shots in Super League? Because we've not seen it before.
No.
Are we going to see it now? I mean, there's not been an edict from head office, well, that I'm aware of. There may have been, but should we have a crackdown?
Yes. Because duty of care is
game's gone soft. Bring back the biff.
I'd love to see some of the ex-players. I can understand why they would say it's gone soft, and that I can understand that. But the posers on the sidelines who say that kind of thing, I think, I'd love to see you get your heads caved in and see what you think about it.
Well, I think if anyone reads the brilliant interview that Donald McRae did with Rob Burrow,
absolutely,
and I think was it 30 concussions he suffered in his career, and I think there was some. I've written it down. There was some stats that were circulated in the media, not in that interview, but around the same time. No, I don't seem to find it, but I think it was Peter V'landys who said, it's fine to win at all costs, but not at the cost of a player's welfare.
Absolutely.
And
the other thing as well that needs to be recognised is the game went fully professional around about the start of Super League. We are now 25 years into that. The medical research is saying that because the impact of being fully professional is having a much greater loading on collision, we need to respond to that.
And the more times more times you get hit in the head and concussed, you are more likely to get dementia and MND.
And I also think that when we look back at some of our favourite players from a different era, they are suffering now in their old age.
Many of them are,
from repeated blows to the head. And yes, the game was different, the rules were different, the acceptance in society was different. Now that we know some of that impact, we have to be seen to be doing something. So some people get sent off and are proved to be not guilty, but they're deemed at the time of collision that they'd hit the head.
There's also the question or the talk about whether tackle technique has changed because of the wrestle, and that people now hit on the ball and higher as opposed to at the waist or below the ball or the legs, and that seems to be so. Obviously, your chances of slipping up are a lot greater.
Absolutely.
So whether we need to go back to,
well, I think that's the thing that both Trent Robinson and Wayne Bennett talked about. That yes, there's a crackdown, and it's meaning that some games have got blowout scores because players are being sin-binned where earlier in the season they weren't. But if it proves that over time their technique improves, it's got to be a good thing. And Victor Radley will have to learn to tackle lower.
His father's from Sheffield, so we'll blame that anyway. But there is, I mean, if you look at rugby union, there was obviously a lot of concern when they started theirs, but it does seem to be pretty much accepted now. Wasn't my choice, so please don't blame me, but I was at a Welsh person's house, and I was watching the European Cup final on Saturday, and a player got red carded because he went to make a tackle and his shoulder connected the head of an opponent, and play went on. He got red carded, but the game went on, and it was quite an absorbing contest. It will be accepted. Players will learn. They will modify.
They have to.
Yeah.
And there will be occasions where someone slips into a tackle and inadvertently their head will be hit, but you have to protect the head.
It's tough. It's like when they know not to go in for the knee, but going for the knee. They know not to do it. They still do it. They know not to abuse people on the pitch, but they still do it. Jason's asked, does tackling low cause just as many concussions? I don't know. You'd assume not, because you're not targeting the head. But obviously there's going to be the
tackle, the person doing the tackle. Floor, I think that comes down to the technique of where you place. Yeah. But I think tackling styles have changed over the last 20 20 years or so,
and
15
whiplash
years.
is a huge issue as well, because again, the force of the tackle is greater than it's ever been before, and all of that needs protecting as best you can.
Is or can be a dangerous sport. We were
It
both
is.
there. Innocuous moment, which is left
Mm.
someone. I don't know how much he is at the minute, but he's obviously not what he was 14 months ago.
Mm.
That Rob Burrow interview, apart from being brilliant, because Donald McRae did it, again, there isn't evidence that says loads of blows to the head have contributed to my condition, but his wife, who has dealt with physiotherapy all her life and may not yet be an empirical study in itself, is saying she thinks it's a contributory factor. Well, we can't ignore that.
If you're a young mother reading that story now, and your 6-year-old son wants to play rugby league
or football, he's got the choice.
Yeah, well, as long as he's not hitting the ball, yeah. But what what impact does that have?
Which again is the Volandes rationale.
That's right. We need the next generation to come through. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
we don't have participation. We do not have a sport at all,
Absolutely.
let alone academies.
Absolutely, 100%.
So we have to make the sport as safe as possible. It isn't a safe sport. Anyone who's played it,
like you did this weekend.
no, playing touch is a lot safer. But
you couldn't get up the stairs.
No, that's a different story. But it is a elite sport.
Absolutely.
That's why the people who play it at the highest level deserve the praise and the accolades, because
Absolutely,
it's huge
100%.
bravery.
And I think
not everyone can do it.
We'll get on to the women's game as well, but to play this sport at an elite level, be it men, women, young kids, you have to be an incredible athlete now. Not everybody is going to come through because it's so demanding. It's not jumpers for goalposts.
I think it's just not the athleticism; it's the mental strength and the mental toughness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You usually kept playing. It's all, and it's all the other players are exactly the same. It's almost madness.
Sometimes we need to take those decisions out of the hands of those that have incredible mental toughness and say, for your benefit, stand down for a little bit.
I think James Graham is the perfect example, who was kind of, it's my body, it's my brain.
Yeah. But
then researched the topic and came around to an understanding that yes, things need to be, and some people probably need to be protected from themselves.
Yes, absolutely.
We're in trouble, Phil, because your dad's phone to complain that's not been working.
I see.
Yeah. This is the biggest scandal in broadcasting since the BBC thing last week, I think. It's working. We're moving there. I can see us. The women's Challenge Cup semi-finals won the BBC red button, but rather than go and listen to Mark Wilson, we went to York. We were there at the boutique. York City Knights home, the LNER Community Stadium. Very nice.
Brilliant.
Pretty seats and everything. Plenty of room, plenty of leg room. Not enough plug sockets. Probably do a few more of them before the World Cup. Get some in, John, if you're watching. Had a comment on Twitter on Saturday, I think it was, saying the Leeds players look tanned. I think I'm concerned.
The yellow shirt.
It's the yellow shirts. I think there's some kind of
maybe they've been Ollie Palm against.
Yeah,
so long.
Nuclear yellow. I'd noticed it the week before because when Leeds were playing at Wakefield, some of their players look very orange. I'm not going to name them because they might be watching, but some of them look very orange and they're not orange.
Two wonderful games.
Yeah, let's talk about York first. You've got to be brave as a coach to put a player in at fullback who's not usually a fullback. And that's what they did with Kelsey Gentles. They put her in at fullback, and York went on to beat Castleford 32-4, which I guess was not much of a surprise, was it, in terms of the scoreline? I was a bit disappointed with the game because I thought, I'm trying to put this the right way. I thought Castleford would have upset them a bit more. I thought they would have been a bit more physical with them. But I guess
carried a sense of angst.
Yeah, but they were too professional. If they tried to wind them up, I'd have wound them up.
Are they the new Castleford? How have they managed to poach What's going on there, Rich?
5 players.
And the coach.
And the coach, yeah.
And 2 from Bradford, one of whom was the player of the match.
Is that a monetary investment, or is that just smart recruitment?
Was it the conditioner or whatever he is? I don't know. Someone else on the coaching staff.
I think there has been an inducement, an expenses covering inducement. Nothing illegal.
No. I'm not.
Perfectly
not,
within the realms of the rules of a competition where
more of a kind of Silvertail, Spybro style.
I think it's Andrew says here, health insurance and expenses.
I think it's more to do with ambition, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the York club want to
fair play them.
Build and move forward. There is an argument as to whether that should be done out of season rather than in season, that there isn't really a transfer policy. So Castleford have been left without 5 of their best players and have no recompense. And I think that is a valid question to be asked. I just thought the skill levels were superb of the York players. And the one thing you have to say is you can bring a lot of players in, but as Ian Watson has been saying, it does take a little bit of time to gel them into a unit. And they have done that virtually overnight, which is a full credit to the women themselves and the coaching staff. They looked a really, really good outfit. They got the ball to their most damaging players most often, and they were a joy to watch.
Castle will rebuild because they've got still some very good players there. You've got the Woman of Steel from 3 years ago.
Olivia Ford?
Yes, because you kept asking me. Olivia Wood. Close.
Olivia Wood.
Close.
Sounded like Ford, but it was Wood. Absolutely outstanding.
Never stopped working, did you?
Would not have got a nomination for player of the match, but every team needs somebody who is just going to take the dirty carries and keep going up and making the tackles against bigger people. And she was, for me, absolutely outstanding and epitomised the best of the women's game. Olivia Wood, sorry for getting your name wrong first time. I thought you were brilliant.
I don't think Marsha was playing 13, was she? But she's a proper. She's Andy Farrell. She's Andy Farrell now. When Andy Farrell decided, well, actually, I'm going to be stand off now. I'm not going to be a loose name. I'm going to be stand off in that era in the early 2000s. So York in the final.
Peach as well.
Yes,
absolutely controlled the game.
They've got the right players in the right positions, haven't they? From Castleford there. It's interesting that I guess the interesting thing now is when you look at it is, yes, they took the players they did. Why did they not take the other players? They didn't. I don't know. So you try to work that one out yourself. But Castle will come back because they'll rebuild somehow. So they're in the final. They're the big underdog story. It's a strange underdog story, isn't it? Because to the outside world, it's massive underdogs. York. They've come from nowhere. They were bottom of the league last year with Wakefield and this now. But inside the game, it's not quite the same because obviously they've taken these players from Castle, and some people aren't as she's a great story as the outside world is. But that's fine because we can talk about it in different terms in the outside world. The second semi-finals was the one we were looking forward to because this was the great fixture of 2019. Twice on that occasion in the Challenge Cup and the playoffs, Leeds nicked it at the death. But this was a bad weekend for Leeds. Men, women, PDRL, I think, all lost. Everyone out. 20 points to 12. I think since... I don't know if that scoreline... I don't say flat as Leeds. That's not what I mean, but I think Saints were better than the scoreline.
It didn't reflect St Helens' dominance.
They were really good.
There were 2 teams who, again, were very, very evenly matched, and so you need an edge. And the edge that St Helens clearly had and have had for a year and a half and have tried through the closing was they needed the chance for redemption. And it was that extra element that said, we are going to do whatever it takes to not lose again to this opposition. You could tell when Courtney Winfield's Hill conversion to Leeds' late try hit the post that it was almost a big sigh of relief from St Helens, because had that gone over and it had been 2014 with 3 minutes to go, you could almost see people thinking it's going to happen again. Keeping Courtney Winfield Hill under complete control. I think that they had, again, a couple of players who, when they were given a half chance, their centre combination was absolutely outstanding. But the work that they did in the middle to shut Leeds down, they got their deserved reward. And you could tell what it meant to them at the end, because they reacted as though the biggest weight had been lifted off their shoulders.
They did to Leeds in terms of defence what I've seen Leeds do to teams already this season. It was a really great defensive performance from St Helens. Interesting how Leeds bounce back from this one, because obviously this is their first real big defeat. I think you can write off that defeat to Wigan in the Championship grand final a couple of years ago, because the weather was awful. And
I don't think Super League was as established then as it is now.
We were the only people there, you and Pete Smith, I think. Not that meaning you were the only people there on Saturday. But yeah, I don't think that was that in stream, that game?
Yes.
At least it was on the BBC.
It was just a great game.
Yeah.
I think there were two very, very contrasting games. One was very open, and the other was just incredibly intense. But the standard of the women's game is not only on the rise if those two semi-finals are the judge, but we started this long rambling conversation many moons ago about profile. And in the lead up to these two semi-finals, there was a page in the Daily Telegraph about
Ashley Hyde.
We're very big on women's sport.
Yeah.
But it was about Ashley being 7 weeks after giving birth, was playing in this game. Well, name me a men's story that's going to get a page in the Daily Telegraph at the moment.
I can't.
Probably something negative.
But there isn't going to be one. So I get people who say, oh, why do you spend so much time talking about the women's game? The potential that the women's game has got
needs to be supported.
Is
100%.
Something that we should be putting as much resource behind as we can. And that when we talk about elite academies, we need to bring them in for women and girls as well.
Andrew says, York might have brought in 7 players, but there's 17 players in the team, plus others in the squad. They've got some good talent already in the team. The 7 haven't just won it on their own. No, they certainly haven't.
Absolutely not.
But it obviously helped.
But it's elevated the level that they're playing at.
Yeah.
And the others that were there are responding to having better players in the squad, demanding more of them. So it clearly has an impact. But no, it's not about just the ones that...
It is interesting, though, that York as a club is investing in its women's team. I mean, it has invested in its men's team, but probably a lot of clubs would take that money and go, well, we'll just put more of that into the men's team. But
and as John Flatman said when he was on here, they recognised that they'd neglected the women's team, and that now they've found some resource to put into it, they're going to make best use of it.
And if they make even more signings, which they may well do in the future,
I think they may well do in the future. They may even not come from traditional rugby league areas.
like Newcastle.
All McCallum. Daughter of
Oh,
James.
did we find that out?
Yes. But from Whitley Bay, I think.
Whitley Bay.
But isn't that a great story that we haven't told?
Yeah.
That a guy who played in a Challenge Cup final, his daughter was now playing in the semi-final of the Challenge Cup final.
Mm-hmm. I was looking over the fact that Danica's got a twin. It's just.
You can tell.
St Helens are in the final. If you're not watching the interview with Birmingham, you have to, because you will be completely full of enthusiasm afterwards for the final in a couple of weeks' time, which is on BBC Two, on actual television. Just think, as we said a couple of weeks ago, it was just on the BBC Sport website 3 years ago, and now it's on actual television. So that's that. This week in the Betfred Women's Super League, I'm not going to a game, so I don't know if you can, but please go. Huddersfield, Wigan, Wakefield, Featherstone, Warrington, Bradford, York, Castleford. Don't know when any of these games have been played. Could be anywhere.
Oh, York, Castleford repeat game.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Could be absolutely anywhere.
Hope that's on our league.
So Warrington, Bradford will be
Twitch.
interesting, of course, because Bradford having lost to Huddersfield the other week. Warrington are looking for their first one, aren't they? Still in the competition, so. And Wakefield Fev will be good as well. Come on, Wakefield. Better win.
Bragging rights.
Yeah. I think we're done, aren't we? I think.
Any other questions on?
No. I mean, hopefully next week things work better. But
we had the wall all done, chips polished, hoovered, but we couldn't get the technology.
No, but it's still better than Zoom.
It is. It's just good to be back. It's good to have interaction while we're there, and it's great to be in a room together.
Yeah. It's like
I'll have to
the
ring me dad. Right?
yeah.
You upset?
Yeah, they're going to get told off your wife as well now. What's he called? He's on the thing at the start of the program.
Robert Elston.
Robert Elson, yeah, and he took date that, don't know, because he's on that. But for the last year, we've been stuck in, so I can't really put any new people on it. Just be Zooms. But we're not going to do the predictions because we can't be bothered. We'll wait till Scott gets back.
I'm still not sure there's a form line in Super League anyway at the moment.
No,
Wigan.
Wigan by 10.
But we're going to have Catalan this weekend. Who would you confidently predict would win that?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'd still edge towards Wigan, but not with a lot of yeah. Apparently, I've got
You're
Wigan.
Wigan.
Yeah, apparently I've got Wigan bias. So add to my other biases. There's a lot of
is it
biases
just the whole
to
of
fit in.
like the Wigan borough?
I think there's Hull FC, Leeds.
Are you anti-Leeds?
Apparently.
All right.
Toronto, obviously. Okay.
Ottawa.
Yeah. Catalans.
Where's Eric Perez these days? I've not heard from him for a while. He's still about?
I don't know what's happening with the NARL.
I'd like to help. I think they've issued some domestic season fixtures in the East due to start in June.
I mean, this programme fully is behind Jacksonville just picking up a trophy and claiming it as the role. We're fully behind that. And
Not
What
playing.
about the Las Vegas Strippers?
the what?
I mean, whatever they're called.
But aren't they not now playing?
Should be
because they're
called
in the
strippers.
West.
I don't know. That's what they should be called.
And on that bombshell.
Is
It's an
that
opportunity, man.
Is that the male or the female team? Just do not answer that.
oh.
Do not answer it.
Haven't you seen the Thunder from Denver?
We've done all this great work
Juveniles.
for Women's Rugby League. And there you go, straight in. It's all gone into the bin. Again. We'll be back next week. I don't know. Is anyone joining us next week? I don't know.
I normally do as I'm told.
Yeah, I don't know.
Leave it all to you.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see who turns up next week.
I think my dad's on.
Yeah. We'll see who we can get to come to Leeds and talk about Rugby League. I'll have to do now because I just have to do this here. So we'll see. Thanks for putting up with us, and we'll see you. We'll see you next week. Adios. Bye bye. End. It's not yet. No end. Bye.